Hi, I'm Christine Daigle.
I'm Jena Brown.
I'm Kevin Tumlinson.
And I'm JD Barker. Welcome to Writers Inc. So just let's go around the room. What is the current temperature wherever you are? It's 89
Oh,
degrees here in New England.
let's see.
It's currently 93 here in beautiful southern Ontario. We're getting up to 96 today, I think. Maybe
We
higher. It
got
was 99
That
yesterday.
91 in
Yeah.
Pittsburgh right now.
So, this is kind of fun because I'm in Las Vegas and I think everyone would expect me to be the hottest. We are 85 degrees right now.
Ooh.
And your air is
That is
probably
actually.
not soup. Or my air is soup today.
I've got friends in Florida, and I touched base with a few of them earlier today, and it's cooler down there than it is in New York and a lot of the northern places.
Canada.
Yeah. So
Now, do you
apparently,
get?
if you want to get really nerdy about the weather, it's because of the La Nina. So,
Mm.
Yeah.
they have the El Nino, the La Nina, and when it's a La Nina year, it's worse for the Midwest and the Upper East Coast and cooler for sort of the southern and western. It's like the way the wind moves or something. So,
Do you all have
Mm.
air conditioning?
yes.
I
Oh,
know in
yeah.
Vegas for sure.
Yeah.
Up here in New England, it's not that common.
Yeah.
Up until
Yeah.
maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there were maybe 1 or 2 days out of the year where you would actually need it, but most of the time it's 60s and 70s during the summer. So the houses up here were just built without it. Like the house next door to me, my crazy neighbors moved out. Somebody just bought it for I think 2.2 million. It's got zero air conditioning. I just
Wow.
I
No.
can't I can't fathom that. But
Two
most of
two
the houses
million
up here
dollar
are like
house with a
that.
bunch of window units.
Yeah, well, honestly, they don't even have a window unit in there. I keep looking over when I walk past it. I'm waiting for a window unit to pop up, and all I see are open windows, and they must be dying in there. So I might have to go check on them after we finish the podcast just to make sure
Yeah.
they're still alive.
You're going to have to
Yeah.
lock your doors. You're going to find them in their indoor pool. You got your
Yeah,
back turned.
we're heading to the water park after this. It's a
Nice.
good excuse to go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Nice. Yes. Perfect. I will
Cool.
say,
All
at
right.
least when it is 90 here, we don't have humidity. I don't care what people say. You can make fun of us in our dry heat all you
Yeah.
want, but humidity is the devil.
Yeah. Well, I was surprised when we did Author Nations there 2 years ago, and I'm like, oh, it's like 60s and 70s. It's going to be
Yeah.
beautiful. It's freaking cold because you have no humidity. Like, this is
Yeah.
Loved it.
weird.
Loved it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
230 degrees, but it's a dry heat.
You know what? You can make fun of it all you want. I will take 100 degrees here than 85 with humidity
Yep.
any
Yeah.
day of the week.
That's how you get
Surprisingly,
that.
the humidity here in Pittsburgh has been super high. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll walk outside just immediately covered in sweat.
Ugh,
Just
gross.
But
it's like Houston level humidity. It's weird.
I don't know. I'm not used to your dry humidity though. So the 2 times I've been there in Vegas for a week, like I am so dry, I can't even
Oh,
deal with
yeah.
it. So this year I have bought a travel humidifier and it is coming with
Nice.
me to Vegas while I sleep.
Perfect.
So
Yeah,
I am my own
you
travel
have to get used to
humidifier.
it. I will say, you just get used to slathering, I mean, not just sunblock when you go outside, but just lotion, and hydrating, you just kind of
yeah,
adjust to that.
This
But
is how you get that leathery skin that John Wayne had. You just live in Vegas for a little while.
perfect.
well, if you don't moisturize, yes, but if you moisturize, it's actually fine.
Yeah. No, we have to go back to
Mm.
our Gen X roots, right? Banana boat SP4 baby oil. What just
Yeah.
Not baby oil.
whatever
That'll
it
turn
is.
you into a fruit roll up. You want
That was a thing.
It
My
was a
sister and
thing.
her friends used to bring the baby oil to the beach, and they would
Yeah.
put I think it was lemon juice in their hair
Lemon
to
juice in
bleach
your
their
hair, you
hair.
get nice
yeah.
blonde highlights and your
You,
baby
you
oil.
could hear them sizzling when you walked by. They did not
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
All right, what is going on in the news, Kevin?
All right. So speaking of lemon juice, Pocket Books relaunched as home for self-published authors. Simon and Schuster is relaunching its historic Pocket Books imprint with a new lemon zesty smell, is where that comes from. No, but instead of publishing mass market paperbacks, it will focus on signing successful self-published authors, especially in romance, horror, and romantic thrillers. The new imprint will be led by An Schlup, who previously helped grow best-selling authors at Amazon Publishing, including Colleen Hoover, Rebecca Yaros, and Geneva Rose. Pocket Books plans to launch 2 to 3 titles a month beginning in 2027, giving indie and hybrid authors access to Simon & Schuster's marketing, publicity, and nationwide print distribution. Simon & Schuster, I think, has figured out what the next wave of publishing is. That's what
Yeah.
this feels
Well,
like to me.
it's really interesting, right? Because they're no longer treating indies or self-pub authors as competition. It's now a talent
Right.
pipeline.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of taking chances on unknown writers, they're like, well, you're a hit. We're going to sign
Yeah.
you. So yeah, it's going more that way for sure.
I'd be curious to see what the contracts look like because they're doing everything else differently. I'm wondering if they're still sticking to like a traditional contract with an advance and then a lower payout, or if they're coming up like like an indie press would to like maybe a 50% payout or 60% or something higher and no advance. But
Yeah.
obviously, definitely a big deal. And like, yeah, I don't see these kind of announcements coming out of any of the other big publishers. It's all Simon and Schuster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have figured out. I mean, they're definitely like into trying new things, which I think is good. I think that's usually what helps other, the other publishers will start to see what's successful and, mimic it, or at least try other new ideas. New ideas are always good.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can only turn a blind eye to it for so long. You look at like any of the Amazon charts, and the first 100 are all indie authors, and then you've got the occasional traditional title like sprinkled in between there. But like they're dominating all the big charts right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got family here in Pennsylvania that has discovered Theo of Golden, and they
Oh,
were
yeah.
amazed to discover he was an indie author.
Yeah.
Well, Colleen Hoover started indie, and so did
Yeah.
what's his Christopher Paolini, the
Yep.
Aragon books. A lot of
hmm
people don't know that. Wool was that Hugh
Yeah, Hugh
Howey?
Howey.
Hugh Howey. Yeah.
Andy
They're
Weir, I don't know if he was self-published, but he was blogging
Yeah. He
and
was
stuff. So
self-published.
yeah, so
Yeah.
lots of big names self-published first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We're winning is what you need to take from that. Okay. Podcast publicity for authors and publishers. What's working? For many authors, podcast tours are becoming the modern equivalent of a traditional book tour. And in some cases, they're even more effective. One publicist shared that a client appeared on 20 podcasts that are all aired within a 2-week period, creating a coordinated publicity blitz that sold 2,400 books. Jane Friedman gives these tips for self-pitching. Start pitching podcasts 4 to 6 months before your book launches. Smaller niche podcasts often sell more books than huge shows. Build relationships before you pitch. Follow hosts, engage with their content, research their show, and keep your pitch short and personal. Once you're on the podcast, treat it like a conversation, not a sales pitch. I'd like to throw in some additional rules here, honestly. One of which is don't approach me with a obviously AI generated assessment of my show and my skills, trying to suck up to me to get you to interview you.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that it's kind of important, the first note there, pitching 4 to 6 months,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I will say, like, I typically start to get like publicist emails 1 to 2 months before publication. And
Yeah.
as you guys know, like we're already
full.
booked out till
Yeah.
November. So,
Yeah.
Right.
I could be so excited for your book in a month, but we don't have space to interview you. So definitely like earlier is way better.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I can vouch for this because I do probably 5 to 10 different podcasts a week. I've got somebody who aggressively books me for this kind of stuff. And every show I do, it takes maybe half hour to an hour of my time to sit down. But they do the heavy lifting. They go back, they edit it, they get it out there on social media, they promote it. Now they chop it up into little clips for TikTok and for Reels and all these other places.
Right.
And like one podcast goes a long way. Like it can, it'll stay out there in the Google searches forever, which is a big benefit. And like right now I'm weighing that against, I've got First Scarlet Door coming out in September, and I've got a couple bookstores in the Chicago area that have reached out and they want to fly me out there for an appearance. And like, I don't want to get on a plane, and like go to one bookstore. And, even if they get a
Right.
big turnout, it's awesome to have that big turnout, but it's a big production and it's expensive. You've got air flight, you've got hotel. And like, even if they pick up that nut, like somebody is paying for that. And like, podcasts cost just pennies on the dollar versus something like that.
Right.
And that bookstore appearance, it'll be great for the people that show up. They might promote it a little bit before or after on social media, but then it's gone. So it doesn't have the longevity that a podcast has. So I think a lot of the big publishers are starting to see this, and even over traditional media, like print reviews and things like that in magazines, they're seeing this as the better option.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now
All
we're going to
right.
get lots of bitches. We did it to ourselves. Okay.
We're full. Remember, we're full through the rest of the year.
Yeah, we pretty much are.
But they're gonna be like, oh, 6 months from now. All right. Quirky vocab book gets a TikTok bump 40 plus years after publication. A 41-year-old children's vocabulary book, The Weighty Word Book, became a surprise bestseller after TikTok creator Eli McCann asked his followers to help him remember the title of a book his eighth grade teacher had used decades earlier. The response was immediate. Within a day, the book shot up Amazon's rankings, sold out, and the publisher has already gone back to press multiple times to keep up with demand. McCann's nostalgic story about his favorite teacher not only ended up selling both this decade's old book and boosting pre-orders for his upcoming novel, it also reunited him with former classmates and the retired teacher who read the book to him all those years ago.
It's like a Hallmark movie.
Yeah.
They're all going to be on the Today Show next week.
Oh, so cute. We're going to
Yeah.
see a Lifetime version of this coming out soon.
That's probably true. I was like, man, I'm trying to think of the books I read when I was younger. Then I'm like, oh, that was quirky or cool, or who introduced me to that. So I was getting a little nostalgic thinking about that too.
The one that always jumps out for me is Where the Sidewalk Ends.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Shel Silverstein, I think is
Yeah.
the author.
Yeah.
It's still big today. My daughter's 8 years old. She brought that home from the school library
Yeah.
4 or 5 months ago. And
Yeah.
then she got hooked on him because he's got like 4 or 5 other books that are just as good.
Yeah.
But there's some longevity there if you hit the right market. You find the
I-
right little angle.
My whole my love affair with books started with Encyclopedia Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Donald Sobel, I think, is the author's name, and I don't know if he's still around, but if he is, I should look him up and just personally thank him, possibly interviewed him. But I always kind of think these days of Mike Kotler books as being kind of like the grown-up version of Encyclopedia Brown. Like once Encyclopedia grew up, he became Dan Kotler.
Have you read an Encyclopedia Brown book like recently, like as an adult?
I bought one specifically to go back and see if it held up, and I did enjoy it. I mean, it's very juvenile, but
Yeah.
I thought it was fun. It was a fun concept, a little weird.
I tried to get my daughter hooked on those, I guess about 6-7 months ago, and I was honestly surprised by the level of violence and stuff in them.
Yeah,
and just,
well, that was the best part.
the number of characters running around with guns and like things that you just don't see in like a normal little kid book in today's world. Like it just, I read them, like I knew what was in there, but like it had been so long, like I'm so used to reading today's versions of kids books. It really hit me with surprise.
Have you ever seen those old school Tom and Jerry cartoons?
Or like the
with-
Looney
Yeah.
Tunes.
Oh, I
They're
love
so
those, yeah.
violent.
I know, they're drinking whiskey and smoking cigars.
shooting guns at each other, all of it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
man, we had the best childhood, really.
It is so shocking though, because your memory of it, that was just normalized, so you don't remember it as being shocking. But then, now you're used to how kids' cartoons and things are, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Oh, I recommended a cartoon I will not name to my son and then started watching it with him. And I was like, holy smokes, this was far more adult than I remembered. But yeah, it is weird
This-
how things have changed.
What's kind of surprising to me is the amount of sexual innuendo in all those old cartoons, especially Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
There was so much, and I'm
You
like,
didn't get it as a kid. Like you didn't get
yeah,
it.
as a
No.
kid.
It was layered.
But I
Like the
think
grown-ups got
I
it.
actually- I believe these days more kids would get it. That's the problem. I think
Well, yeah.
because of social media and other exposure that they have, I was a pretty naive kid,
Yeah.
But now I think
That's-
they could probably pick up on it.
That is interesting that, we were exposed to it, but it just didn't really, it just wasn't anything that registered for
No, it
you.
didn't
But I
register.
do agree that kids probably would tune into it more. Maybe that's why we've changed it. Or maybe they would, I don't know. It's one of those.
Yeah.
An interesting thing to think about.
There you go. Leave that one to the people who study those kind of things.
Sociology.
Sociology,
I-
archaeology, I don't know.
I'm
Anthropology?
pretty sure there's a Wile
Anthropology.
E. Coyote
Anthropology,
movie.
thank you.
I think there's a Wile E. Coyote movie that's been done for a while where he's on trial.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
they've been sitting on it. They haven't released it, and I'm hoping it's because it's a little too violent for today's world. Because I wouldn't mind seeing a new Wile E. Coyote cartoon.
That would be
It'd be
pretty
fun.
funny. Wile E. Coyote was definitely he's suing. Is he on trial or is he suing Acme?
I think he's
That
suing
might
Maggie.
be it. Yeah,
I think
something
I've
like
heard
that.
of that.
Just hilarious as a concept.
They had an
Oh,
entire show book for the Roadrunner and Coyote, by the way,
Yeah.
with rules like they could only ever buy Acme products.
Mm-hmm.
He could never actually catch the Roadrunner. That was taboo. The Roadrunner could never speak. There was a whole bunch of like serious rules. Like if you broke these rules, you were out.
yeah.
So.
That's what it takes. All right. JD, who's up this week?
This week we've got David Weiden on. David's first novel, Winter Counts, won the Anthony Award for Best First Novel, the Thriller Award for Best First Novel, and was nominated for an Edgar. He's back with his sophomore effort, Wisdom Corner. It's a thriller about life and death on the Rosebud Indian Reservation, and it releases on July 7th. Here he is, David Weiden.
Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to talking to you. I very much enjoyed your book, Winter Count is Wisdom Corner. Winter Counts was the first one, right?
That's right. That's correct.
Okay, awesome. We will. Yep, there it is. Beautiful cover. We'll get there in a second, though. First, we like to start at the beginning, kind of go back. What is your writer origin story? How did you get started writing?
Well, I think like so many of us writers, I started off being just an obsessive reader. And I grew up in Denver, Colorado. I'm Native American. I'm an enrolled citizen of the Sicangu Lakota Nation. And our nation is in South Dakota. But I grew up in a very, very impoverished neighborhood in Denver. And I've told this story before, but I love it. It is true. There were no libraries near our house. And but a bookmobile would come by my school, and I would go there every Friday afternoon and get 5 or 6 books and read them over the week. Spy novels, romances, literary fiction, history, you name it. And so I just grew up with being exposed to everything, and not necessarily kids' books either. I mean, I would read, some teen YA books. They didn't call them that then. But I'd read everything. And so I just grew up in love with narrative and language and the printed page. But when you grow up in a fairly, working class, no nice way to say it, a poor family where money's always a problem, I didn't have being a writer really on my menu. I just didn't see a way to make that happen. So I did become a lawyer. Because I heard they make money, and later
I've heard that too.
right, I've heard it, didn't happen for me, but and then a college professor. But then to get to your question, I have 2 sons, and 19 and 21. And about 20 years ago, when my first son David Jr. was born, I don't know, for some reason something clicked in me, and it's like this dream of being a writer. It has to happen now. I have to get started now. And I was living in Indianapolis at the time, and I started taking classes at the local writing workshop in Indianapolis. And I just loved it. It was like something clicked for me. And so I started writing. Now, the first short stories I wrote are terrible. I hope nobody ever finds them, but that was it. And from there, I had a little more writing instruction. I was told to go get an MFA degree, Master of Fine Arts. I'm like, I don't think I can do another degree, but they're like, you need to, Dave. I'm like, oh, okay. So I did what's called a low residency MFA, which means
nice.
distance, online really. And so I didn't have to go travel to Iowa or something. And then, Winter Counts was my first attempt at a novel. And to my great surprise, it sold and was a national bestseller right out of the gate.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm very sad about the libraries, but I do love the idea of a bookmobile. I think that we should bring those back regardless. I'm enamored with that idea. I think.
It was just wonderful. It was just this little oasis of books in this big van. And they'd let us go in there. It was such a treat to me. That and the Scholastic Book Fair. Being
Yes.
able to go in, and my mom would she'd scrape together $5 or $10. I'd buy some Encyclopedia Brown books and other stuff. And just, so it was just a love affair, really, with the written word.
Yeah. God bless the Scholastic Book Fair. So, you started writing, you did your MFA. What is your writing process, and has that changed as you've kind of gone away from the academic and into the more commercial space?
Yeah, it certainly has. Academic writing. So I should say to your viewers and listeners, I did work and still am a professor for 2 decades now. I was originally a professor of political science and Native American studies at a variety of schools, the U.S. Naval Academy, Illinois State, et cetera, et cetera. But about 2.5 years ago, I was hired at Stony Brook University, where I am a professor of Native American studies and creative writing. So
Nice.
I still teach. But anyway, so I had decades of academic writing under my belt. In fact, I have a book on the U.S. Supreme Court, a co-authored book. And I know, right? Like 3 people read it, and that's a different sort of writing. Research, especially in the social sciences and law, it's just such a different process. It uses a different part of my brain. Now, creative writing is something, completely different. Now, I do draw from my legal background and my political science background, to inform my work, but the process is so different. For
Yeah.
me, obvious, I mean, this is, not too original to say, I guess, but it's much more free flowing, and I have to let my subconscious get out there. Whereas in academic writing, it's very much like every statement, every sentence I write, like, can this be justified? Is this is this supported by the evidence? And writing is such a
Mhm.
different thing because I can just make it all up. So
Right. Yeah. You can make up the evidence. Yeah. So, I want to talk a little bit about the first book in the series, because even though Wisdom Corner comes out, it is a sequel. So to kind of ground our listeners and sort of, the background of it, where did the idea for the series come from?
sure, I should point out though that Wisdom Corner is what we call a standalone sequel, meaning you need not have read Winter Counts to read Wisdom Corner. However, I do think that reading Winter Counts first will, introduce you to the characters and give you some of their background.
Yeah. It immerses you a lot more.
Yes,
Yeah.
agreed. But you need not. Okay, so so for those of you who viewers, listeners who may not be familiar about Winter Counts, the first book in the series, it is the story of Virgil Wounded Horse, who is a hired vigilante on the Rosebud Indian Reservation in South Dakota, which is a real native reservation. The Washington Post actually once called it fictional, and I did.
Oh.
Ouch! I did not. My mom is from there. I did not call to
Mm.
correct them, but somebody did, and they ran a correction. And the Washington Post has been great to me, so no hard feelings, Washington Post.
No hard feelings.
So Virgil Wounded Horse, my main character, is a hired vigilante on the Rosebud Indian Reservation, hired because of a problem, which is a law called the Major Crimes Act. On Native American reservations today, a law was passed in the 1800s by the U.S. Congress, which says Native American nations, separate sovereign nations within the boundaries of the U.S., with our own criminal justice systems. We have our own police forces, jails, courts, prosecutors. We cannot prosecute serious felony crimes. That right has been taken away from us. Instead, murders, rapes, sexual assaults, arsons, we have to call in the feds, the FBI and the U.S. attorney's offices. They have the sole authority to investigate and prosecute these crimes. However, the FBI and the U.S. attorney's offices are declining to prosecute somewhere between 30 and 50% of all crimes. And that's by their own numbers. This isn't something I'm making up. So when they decline a case, the offender is set free. So this is terrible. Now, by way of comparison, outside of reservations, the declination rate is maybe 5 to 10%. So, for reasons that we don't have time to get into today, the U.S. government is just not fulfilling its duty to prosecute crimes, serious crimes, and keep people safe on reservations.
Mm-hmm.
So a hired vigilante, like my fictional Virgil Wounded Horse, will come in, and if somebody hurts your daughter or your cousin or your mother, and they're let free. They're let go. They're free. You might hire Virgil, who will go in and put down a beating on them for $100 is his price for each bone he breaks, each black eye, and each tooth he knocks out. So
nice a la carte menu.
Yes. Now you don't get to specify. I actually had a question in another interview. It's like, can you specify? I actually had an interviewer just last week say, can you specify like one black eye and two broken bones? No. Virgil just comes in and he does what he does. Okay.
Dealer's choice. I'm used to that here.
I love that. Dealer's choice. Vigilante's choice. And anyway, now vigilantes really do exist on reservations. They're not common, but they do exist. Now, to answer your question, how did I get this idea? I had been aware in my academic writing of the problem of the Major Crimes Act and the FBI's failure to keep Native Americans safe. Mm-hmm. And I was aware of the vigilante phenomenon. And so it came to me about 15 years ago in a flash. It's like, I should write a short story about this person. And in fact, I did. I wrote a short story where I developed the character of Virgil Wounded Horse. And in that short story, he dies at the end.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he's a lot rougher than the current Virgil. And but that was like an early version of it. But then later on, about 2 years after that, I said, wait a minute, I think there's something here. And so I expanded the short story into a novel form. And obviously, Virgil does not die in the first novel. So long story short, the idea for both books came from my academic work.
That's so fascinating. I know that you had mentioned in the afterward and then, also just now how, the reservation is real and that, these laws and even vigilantes are real. It's always a tricky thing in fiction when you have these very real elements and fiction. So how did you go about balancing, what had to stay real and what you can kind of play a little bit looser with?
Yeah, that's such a tremendous question because, I am the first person, I've told this before, I am the first Native American citizen to publish with what's called a crime novel with the Big Five, meaning the five major New York presses, in 30 years. So when Winter Counts was published 6 years ago, there had not been a Native American writing a crime novel on a reservation for 30 some years. There had been non-natives, Tony Hillerman and others that had done a lot of that, but no native had. So I was very nervous about this. I didn't think the book was going to sell. And then when I also felt a responsibility to my community, the Rosebud Reservation, in our language, the Sichangu Lakota Oyate. I wanted to provide an honest portrayal of what life is like there, but at the same time positive. I didn't want to do what's called poverty porn, which is like just to focus on how tough life is there, because I actually just came back from there 2 days ago. I was there for a week for a family matter, and a little less than a week. And, the poverty is just overwhelming. It's 85% unemployment. The average family lives on $6,000 a year. There are only 2 grocery stores on the entire reservation. And I didn't know this, but when I was just there 4 days ago, one of them is closing. So one grocery store for an area the size of Delaware. I mean, it's just, life is hard there. There are 2 restaurants, no movie theaters for kids, no coffee shops, no nothing. It's rough. So I wanted, I didn't want to just delve into the poverty porn. I wanted to show the joyfulness and the resilience of the Lakota people. So I fictionalized, some things. I tried not to dwell too much on the poverty as much, but enough to give an accurate representation. Now, other stuff that I fictionalized, just for dramatic reasons, I needed to create some things. For example, in the new book, Wisdom Corner, they American bar called the Depot. So in real life, that is called the Derby, but it closed down about 7 years ago. It's gone. And but in my books, it keeps going.
It lives on.
It lives on only in my imagination, but that was a real loss. So I had to kind of draw a line, between creating, because I knew a lot of non-natives would be reading my book and books. And so, I feel that I've been able to hopefully walk that tightrope fairly well.
Yeah, I think that it did. It read, like I didn't ever find myself going, oh, that doesn't make any sense. And I'm glad that you put in the notes at the end sort of like where it came from, because you do start to wonder, like, is this real or is it entirely fake? And I enjoy learning things like that when you read fiction. I think fiction can teach you a lot. So sequels, the dreaded sequel, the feared sophomore novel, notoriously difficult for writers. What was your experience writing this book?
It was every bit as difficult as what you've heard. Okay. So for one reason, the first reason I was, as is common for writers of all across the spectrum, your first book, you throw everything in there, all of your years of experience and, life and everything else, you throw it in there. And then in the second book, it's like, wait a minute, I don't want to just repeat myself because that would not be
Yeah.
good. But on the other hand, especially if it's a sequel in what could be a series, you don't want to go too far away from what you had, but you want to do something new. That was a very difficult line for me to walk. So that was hard. Now, on top of all that is the first book did very well, both commercially and critically. It was nominated for 20 awards, crime, literature awards, Native American awards, and it won 12 of them.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I have been told that it won more awards than any other debut crime novel in history. Okay, whatever that means. So, and it got really, really wonderful reviews as well across the board, and it was a national bestseller. So there was a lot of pressure on me, because as I was writing it, I was like, people are going to say, oh, well, it's just not as good as the first book. That voice was in my head constantly. But then I just said, look, I'm just going to write the book that I want to write that will amuse me and that I like. And once I was able to kind of toss that monkey, off of my shoulders, then I was able to, I think, really get at the heart. And I'm really proud of this book. I think it accomplishes what I wanted it to. So, but yes, it was every bit as hard as what you've read about.
Yeah. Well, and all that pressure too. I can't imagine. It's hard enough just coming up with the second one. Do you have plans to continue the series?
That's unclear. I mean, I would like to. It's, but we will see if readers are happy with it. We'll see how my publisher feels about it. Let me put it this way. It's very much a strong possibility. I do have an idea for my next book, which is not in the Virgil Wounded Horse world. It'll still be on the Rosebud Reservation, but it's something completely different. That's kind of where I'm going next. I need a little break from Virgil Wounded Horse because I've written 2 books for him, but also 6 short stories with him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I've really been in his head a lot. And as much as I love this character, I need really just to get in somebody else's head for a while.
Yeah, I have heard that before. It's great as a writer, to think like, oh, you have this series and you amass this fandom and like, and everyone just wants more and more and more. But then you're like, okay, but like, what about this idea over here?
Yeah, I mean, he's great. And don't get me wrong, I'm privileged and I'm grateful. And, everyone out there listening that has supported the book, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I mean that so sincerely. And you will get more Virgil, but I just need a little bit of break from him. I am actually writing a new short story for him right now. And I'm like, okay, this is it. I need a break from Virgil here because for 6, really 7, 8 years, he has been just in my headspace. So we will see where the road takes me.
Where the road takes. Fair enough. So, quite a while passed between your first book and your second. You teach. How do you juggle that? Like, what does your writing routine look like? And, all that. Did that weigh in like on some of that pressure of completing the second book?
Yeah, the writing, so there are 6 years. It's been almost exactly 6 years from the time Winter Counts was published to Wisdom Corner, which will be published on July 7th, 2026. Pre-orders available now, but it's 3 weeks away as we do this interview today from being published. So part of the reason why it took me 6 years, or there were a number of factors here. Winter Counts was published in the first wave of COVID. And it seems like a million years ago, but I think we all have to remember just what it was like. Every bookstore in the country was closed. Our entire
Yeah.
society was shut down. I was like, well, this is a disaster. I've been working on this book for years, and now no bookstore in the country is open. So I just threw myself into online stuff. I didn't even know how to do Zoom or anything. I don't think any of us did,
Yeah,
and
I don't think so either.
right, we all had to kind of learn as we went. And so I threw myself into that, and I said yes to everything. I did literally hundreds of interviews. Any book club that wanted to meet with me, I said yes. I mean, I tallied up at some point between podcasts, interviews, radio, TV. I did at least 300 appearances. A
Wow.
lot, a lot, a lot.
Yeah.
But then when society opened up again, all of these festivals and such reached out to me, and they wanted me for the live appearances. So
Mhm.
I spent the next year after that, 21 going into 2022, really traveling all over while still teaching and raising my children, but doing events, live events constantly.
Wow.
And I was thrilled. So in some ways, it was like my book tour had been, postponed by a year.
Delayed. Yeah.
So then, it's like 2 years into it, and I'm trying to write again, but there are other things happening at the time. I've got 2 kids that I was helping get into college, and I didn't know what an involved process that is. It's changed
Oh,
since
yeah.
I was there. I didn't know that they had to write like 6 essays. They have to do interviews. In my day, you
Mhm.
just wrote an essay and you sent it in. They're like, you're in or you're out, but my sons had to do
No,
alumni
it's
interviews.
intense.
Yeah, it was intense. And also, I was interviewing for positions myself. So I used to teach in Denver, but I had about 8 academic interviews for a new position. And academic interviews, job interviews, they're a 2 to 3 day affair.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, you have to travel, you have to teach a class, you have to give a research presentation, you have to go through many, many dinners, you have to meet with students, you have to meet with deans and presidents, and it takes a month of prep for each one. And so I interviewed at MIT, I interviewed at Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, UC Santa Barbara. So I was interviewing all over the country, and that took a lot of time too. And I'm really lucky that I landed at Stony Brook, which is a great fit for me. So by the time all of that settled down, it's like 2024, and my editor is like, "Hey Dave, we really need that next book." And
Right.
and so that's when I started writing it in earnest, and I was able to complete it in 2025.
Yeah, wow, that is a lot. So, well, there's a lot of power in saying yes, but then yeah, you end up maybe getting spread a little thin.
It is what it is. I'm grateful for the privilege that I have, that I've been given. So,
What surprised you the most when writing this book?
oh boy. So writing Wisdom Corner, I had a pretty good idea of where the book was going to go. But I kept wavering and vacillating between the villains. And I'm not going to give away any spoilers here, but I rewrote the
Yes.
book 3 times. There were 3 different bad guys in the book, and the first 2 were not working until finally I'm in the shower one day and it comes to me like, aha, the eureka.
Right. Yeah.
I figured it out. So that surprised me that I couldn't come up with the bad guy right away. Whereas in Winter Counts, I knew who the bad guy was from day one.
Mm-hmm.
But that surprised me. The other thing that surprised me was the characters went in slightly different directions. As I was writing, sometimes, the writing would just go in a direction that I hadn't anticipated. And so there are some detours in this book that were just really fun that I hadn't planned, but I just wrote them and I kept them. So those are the 2, I would say, biggest surprises that I had.
Yeah, that's always, well, I was going to say it's always a lot of fun when the characters sort of like decide to do what they want, but it's not always fun. I mean, in the end, it's fun, but sometimes in the process,
In the
it's a little
process, I was like,
stressful.
where is this going? Does this fit with what I've written before? But I threw a couple of them out, but I was able to keep most of it. And so that was a surprise, but it was a sort of a happy surprise.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, as we head towards the end of our 30 minutes here, we always like to close out the show with the same question, which is, what's one piece of advice you would give to new or aspiring writers?
Yeah, so I teach creative writing at Stony Brook University, and I also teach at an MFA program called Cedar Crest, low residency European program. They meet in Europe every summer, somewhere, 3 different cities. So I do a lot of creative writing teaching. And so, the advice that I give to my students, especially when they're emerging writers, is to trust your own voice and tell your own story. I have so many young people that they think that they don't have anything new to say. They think, oh, I'm not from a native reservation, or I don't have this, or I don't have that. And so they try to write like some crazy speculative fiction thing. And look, if you're feeling that and you want that, yay, okay, go for it. But sometimes I think they're just emulating what they've read. And I'm like, look, write your speculative fiction if that's your love, but bring your own voice and your own experience into it. And I'm a firm believer that everybody has a story to tell and something interesting to say. You know, I had a friend once that told me he actually did this. He moved to Thailand as an expatriate because he said, I need to get some life experience, you know, and you know, at the time I see now how deeply misguided this was. I don't think you need to go to Thailand, you know, to get life experience. You know, wherever you are, I believe you have interesting things and interesting stories and conflicts and dramas happening in your life that you can tell. So trust your own voice and write your own story.
I really love that because I think some of my favorite stories are usually grounded in something mundane, you know, just and they can end up being incredibly fantastical, but you know, it kind of starts with a character and idea of, you know, taking the dog for a walk or an insane barber.
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to get to talk about this book. I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
And thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, and it's a very good book. So if you like crime fiction, and you can, we always like you to start with the first book, but it's not necessary.
Agreed.
It's funny that we started talking about like that kid's nostalgia because, you know, I actually was thinking when he brought up like the bookmobile and the library, like we talk a lot about when we wanted to start writing, but I don't know if we've necessarily talked about like when our love of reading came up, and then it just naturally did today.
Yeah.
I love the Scholastic Book Fair. Like
Yeah.
the second
Yeah.
he said that, it brought back like all those memories. Like I looked forward to it.
Yeah.
I walked in there. It was like walking in. It was better than a toy store to me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
to see all the glossy covers all spread out on the table and like buy up as many
Well,
of them as I could.
it was books, stickers, and erasers. That was the bounty you
Yeah.
came away with.
Bookmarks.
Bookmarks.
Bookmarks were awesome.
Yeah.
Posters. What else? We got all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they had all kinds. Do you remember they would give you like the thing ahead of time? So like you'd have to
Yeah,
like
you
sit
could,
down and
and
like
you had to like
plan out like
Right.
I'm gonna
Underneath
spend
print.
this much money. This is how much I'm gonna
Because you had to
get.
bring a check from home to buy
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you had to
but
get very strategic.
yeah, I can't imagine not having a library though, because I think that's for me as a kid. You know, when we grew up, my parents didn't have a lot of money. My mom took me to the library all the time. Like if you
Yeah.
wanted a book, that's where you would get it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
We had a
remember
similar
libraries
situation. We were
feeling
really
like
far from the
magic.
library.
yeah,
So getting to go to the library was a special treat, and we would load up, but it wasn't close, and so we had a very similar situation. So those Scholastic Book Fairs were a big deal for us for sure.
We lived pretty far out, but for whatever reason, like there ended up being this development that was in biking distance that they built, and it had a library. And that was like the one place I could go, like by myself, like
yeah,
ride my bike, and I would just go to the library. And I just remember thinking it was like just like magic. Like you just present them their card, and like you could just take this stack of books out for free, and like, and librarians are like, they're always like super cool. At least the ones there, like they didn't, when I read through all the, you know, YA back then, didn't even blink when I started going to the adult section.
yeah.
I'm like,
No, they didn't
I
care.
can read whatever I want.
I checked out way too many adult things, and they never said anything. They didn't rat me out to my mom. Nothing. They're just like, yeah, that's great. Take
Yeah,
that home and read that.
librarians, they're the real heroes.
They're the best.
The The book fair always seems so magical, like when you walk in there, but like I only experienced it as a kid. I'd really like to see it now as an adult because if you
Yeah.
think about it, it's probably like one or two guys in a van. Like they show up at the school, they've got to unload all this stuff. You know, they're probably smoking out back. They're like, geez, I hope these kids are done by 3 o'clock so I can get home. You know, it's probably this whole production going on before they open those doors and let all of us in.
Yeah.
Yeah. It might be like, don't ever watch your childhood favorite movies. Have you ever done that? Like you go and then it should have just left it in the memory bank. Should have just
Yeah.
left that memory alone.
I mean, there are
Yeah.
lots of cities now that have adults like Scholastic style book fairs, and I would love to go to one of those because I think that would be a blast.
Yeah,
But
we actually have a Scholastic warehouse here. I don't know if it's called, it's not like publisher specific. I'm gonna have to see. I went there twice and it's great because everything is like $1 and it's a lot of books and you just can go through and load up. See if we can go. Maybe I'll drag Christine to the book warehouse.
I will go to the book warehouse.
Wait a minute. We're all going to be there.
All right, all right, all right.
I guess you
Fine.
can come too.
I don't get to go to the
You guys can go
Scholastic
too.
Book Fair
Book
for
Fair.
grown-ups.
Well, you're usually busy during the
I
day
am usually busy
of
during
this
that thing.
conference.
Yeah.
There's a business opportunity there. You could open a giant warehouse and just call it Remainder and just buy like all the Remainder books from all the
Yeah.
big publishers for
Oh,
like
yeah.
10 cents on the dollar and sell them in there for $1 or $2 and you're still,
Still
getting
coming out
100, couple
ahead.
100%. Yeah.
The fact that JD had a name for that thing ready to go means he has a business plan somewhere.
I'm writing this down. This
Yeah,
is
I
going to come
thought
together.
there was a bookstore like that, but I can't remember what it's called.
Lots of warehouses in Vegas, JD. Saying.
Yeah, it feels like you got to go big though. It's got to be a big warehouse to do something.
Lots of big
we're-
warehouses here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But could
Yeah.
you set up the front with like a Scholastic Book Fair type setup with samples and bookmarks and posters
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
cats
Hey,
hanging
I
in
should-
there and
I
stuff?
should-
I don't know.
Plug something that is interesting, but my friend Byron Corder, we've had his wife Audrey on the show
Oh yeah.
a couple of times, and he's partners in something. They're doing this whole big '80s extravaganza thing, and they're gonna wring my neck because I can't remember what it was called, but it's happening not far from that Horseshoe. It's in that mall just down from the Horseshoe Hotel, and it's a
Fashion
big
show or-
'80s blowout kind of thing.
Cool.
Oh,
With
Movies, music, and maybe, I don't know. We could probably talk them into books, but
Books.
bring us some
Yeah.
Sweet Valley High.
yeah,
I
it's a
read
whole
Sweet Valley.
'80s nostalgia like exhibit experience kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I'll have to
So-
look that up.
Cool.
Just plugging it. It's
Speaking
starting
of
out. They're building it now.
memorializing,
I still want
I
my own
kinda-
bookmobile. That's what I want. I want a book.
Oh,
That's my
Where-
retirement plan. Bookmobile.
That's what I'm gonna do
All right.
Adult
with an
bookmobile.
ice cream truck music.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
might
But it's all
pair
book
books with
themed
drinks.
songs.
JD will get the warehouse here, and Christine and I will buy an old ice cream truck, and we will just take the books around the different neighborhoods
Yeah.
all day, every day, and hand out flyers to bring people to the warehouse.
There you go.
And the
then-
truck plays paperback writer in that like in that style. All right, we interrupted Jenna's next question. Go ahead, Jenna.
I just, it's this, all these questions are coming so naturally because I really liked what he said too about memorializing places in fiction. And again, I know we've talked about that other side of bringing real places to life, but to specifically memorialize places that either closed or, went away somewhere.
Mhm.
I liked that a lot. Have you guys ever done that in a book?
I've used a lot of real places. I used the little, in something I keep upstairs. I used a little general store that we have here on the island.
Yeah.
But it's since been sold and bought by somebody else, so the name's changed.
Oh, interesting.
Which is funny because now when tourists come looking for it, after they read the book, like they can't find it. And, like the island is small. There's like literally like one place it could be. And they will like walk into the new one, not realize, asking where the old one was, even though they're standing in the same space.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder why they would change that. It feels like that would be a good opportunity to keep like the name the same.
The truth is, we're on an island that's got 600 homes, like that can't support a little general store. So like they keep going under. Like every 4 or 5 years, somebody steps in and takes it over from the last person that had it, who couldn't get it to work. And it's always been like that. Like it's never going to become a huge profit center for anybody.
Every coffee shop that's ever appeared in any of my books is really just the same coffee shop, no matter where it is in the world in the books. I just always describe the exact same coffee shop, my
Is it
favorite
like a
coffee shop.
specific coffee shop or just like this magical coffee shop in your
It's
mind?
what I should do is start implying that it is exactly the same coffee shop magically transporting around the world. That's what there's a book in there somewhere.
There
The
is.
magical floating coffee shop.
Yeah, the coffee shop that shows up when people need at your time of need.
I have a concept like that for my imprints, my publishing imprint's called Novelton with a K, but it's based on a town. It's the town appears wherever it's needed with all the stories that are needed for the people who come through.
Oh,
So
Kevin,
I
you're
started
so
writing that a
cute.
long time ago, but I never finished it. But that's the premise.
Kevin's
So.
secret Hallmark movie.
Yeah. That's my dirty little secret.
Your
He
secret
likes
But then
Awesome.
somebody murders everybody. So
Oh, perfect.
that brings
Grumpy.
it back around.
Yeah.
He's really a Hallmark movie.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we're out of time. So I will just ask JD, who is up next week?
Next week, we've got Daniel Silva coming back on. Dan's the #1 New York Times bestselling author of 28 novels. He's back with his latest thriller. It's called Ransom. It's about the search for a missing wife of a British billionaire. It's number 26, believe it or not, in his long-running Gabrielle Allen series. So, Daniel Silva.
Sounds great. If you'd like to be notified as soon as new episodes publish, make sure you go to writersincpodcast.com and sign up now. We'll see you next episode and have a great week of writing.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Writers Inc. Access the show notes and leave a comment at writersincpodcast.com.